接下来时间马上要进入论坛，主办单位今天一共安排了5场次的主题论坛。那么第一场次将会从影响力投资的趋势和前景来深入探讨，主题是回顾2023到2024，展望未来，影响力投资崛起的趋势和前景。The following session is keynote speech and panel discussion with the first topic: Impact Investing 2023 to 2024 and beyond, emerging trends and future directions. It's my privilege to invite the moderator today, CIO of Catha Financial Holdings and Vice Chair of Taiwan Impact Investing Association. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Ms. Sophia Chen. 欢迎今天的主持人，亚洲投资人气候变迁联盟主席，以及我们国泰金控的陈淑芬投资长上台为我们引言。
感谢，这一场呢，我非常荣幸由我来做这个 moderator。那首先呢，在这个场次，我们想要谈到的是，先从终点来谈，就是我们在过去10年来全球发展的这个永续作为揭露都非常的多，我们可不可以让它更有所本？所以这一场我们特别请 Tiif跟 Christina 来跟我们分享一下全球影响力投资要如何推动得更好、更快、更扎实。Christina 是 Bluemark 的这个 CEO， 她也是在全球呢推动了这个好的确信的这个框架，好，在 verification 这个部分也是全球很顶尖的。那根据全球影响力投资联盟的统计呢，它的成员当中，从2017年来，每年都有回复问卷的88位投资人，他们投注在影响力投资的金额从950亿美元，在2022年已经增加到超过2000亿美元。那诚如刚刚我前面谈到了，以全球不下的会员，全球加起来来讲，大概2兆，占全球超过120兆的金融资产来讲，是还太小的。但是我们去关注这些投资人在做影响力投资的领域，从能源到粮食与农业到医疗保健。那我觉得以在亚洲来讲，有一点过度专注只是在能源的领域。那事实上对各个国家，它的国情不同，所需要被关注的环境跟社会议题也不一样。例如居住正义，例如普惠金融，这些也都是很值得大家去关注的。而影响力投资呢，在整个这个促进永续当中非常的重要。从早期我们做捐款，到投资人或是企业做让利，到有公部门或开发基金做保证，促进这个混合型融资。还有像这几年更盛行、越来越快的以成果来促进收益，好，有一些以永续绩效去连结的这个报酬的投资融资的标的。另外呢，也有更多去协助从债转成放款，或者是不同融资的重新再做这个创新，这个发展也非常快的。而评估方法呢，也从过去的各说各话，到现在慢慢大家比较一致性，从早期的社会投资报酬率。到现在我们在讲 impact investment， 好，这个 impact measurement， 然后怎么去阐述一个 impact， 然后像 IRIS， 这个方法论，然后到现在到投资组合，我们身为金融机构，我的投资组合在讲我们产生影响力的时候，到底我整体来讲，除了微观到了宏观，我到底做得如何？好，所以简单的说呢，透过现在法规的推动，也越来一方面去推动影响力投资。那另外一个也希望我们在做永续的事情，可以让它更可靠。好，所以这个场次呢，我们非常荣幸可以请到 Tiif 跟 Christina 来跟我们分享。我先介绍一下 Chris 哈，他是GSG Impact 的前 CEO， 而且他很夸张，他工作过、去过的国家超过60个国家，是我非常敬佩的一位前辈。那同时他很致力于在做 impact investment， 还有 impact transparency， 好，这个透明可靠是很重要的。那他也是 board member of London City Bridge Foundation， 也是 advisor for the Impact Investment Institute、Impact X and Vision Think Tank。那在之前呢 ，Tiif 他是 CEO of Big Society Capital。Unlimited social entrepreneurs and rethink for people affected by mental ill health。所以他更早，包括身心灵的平衡这个领域，他都很关心的。 那他也在健康还有社会住宅上面，还有关注无家可归的人，非常的用心。第二位演讲者呢是 Christina。Christina 她是早期的工作是从 JP Morgan， 也是我以前在美林的时候，大概就是差不多同行。但是她很早在2017年，她就告诉她的总裁，在 JP Morgan 做了超过15年。她觉得如何用民间的资本、投资人的钱去促进社会跟环境的进步，所以早在2007年，她就推出了 JP Morgan 的 Social Finance Business 这个事业计划。那在2020年呢，他是 Tideline 的 co-founder， 他也成为 Blue Mark 的 CEO。他带领这个团队，目前呢带领了超过20个这个 verification assignment 那这个是跨国家还有跨产业的类别。所以今天我们非常高兴有2位很顶级的专家来跟我们分享如何做 impact reporting。然后 impact 这个 transparency， 然后如何去推进影响力投资的这个拓展。那我的简介就到这里，接下来呢就有2位讲者各做大概20分钟的演讲，我中间就不再打断他们，等他们2位的讲完之后，我再上来做综合的讨论。谢谢大家。
非常谢谢陈淑芬投资长的引言，请入座。Thank you, Ms. Sophia Chen. Please be seated. 紧接着安排第一场次的主题演讲。I'm honored to invite the first keynote speaker, former CEO of GSG Impact. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for welcoming Mr. Cliff Pryor.
Wonderful. Good morning, and thank you for having me. And apologies that I will be speaking in English. My Chinese, I can be rude, but nothing else. So, and it's wonderful to see as well just how many distinguished guests there have been today. We're really delighted to see Tia and how impressive it is now in just a few years. I loved the point about knowledge to action. I think that's exactly where we are here. So I'm going to talk about impact and about creating a better future for people and our shared planet by putting impact into the very heart of every kind of decision. But first of all, maybe it's good to look at what we mean by investment and impact investment in particular. So impact investing is intentional, it's managed, it's measured, and it's reported. And in the spectrum of investment, impact is at the most important zone of this spectrum, fully committed to achieving positive results for both people and planet. Impact investors are, if you like, the angels of our investment world. So let's look at this continuum of impact. Investment, which is avoiding harm or benefiting stakeholders or contributing to solutions. And on this slide, we see traditional, moving to responsible, moving to sustainable, moving to impact, and also some philanthropy, with ESG in the sort of responsible to sustainable areas. Impact investing is now no longer seen as a branch of philanthropy, though philanthropy still is very important in some of the toughest areas and now very frequently mixed as part of a blended finance model alongside responsible and sustainable funds. As in many other fields of work, some people pretend more than they are actually delivering. Some try their best and deliver fully, which is great. Some try their best, but investment doesn't always fully deliver, and that is just life and the life of business. But some people don't even try, and greenwashing has been a challenge in a number of countries, and I'm sure that Christina will be saying a lot more about how to avoid greenwashing and get security in impact investing. But we need more. We need more real impacts from impact investing. We need it for, we know it's successful, but we need it for returns, we need it for people, we need it for the climate, we need it for regulatory requirements. And then there's a question, and the question is, after 15 years since impact investing really started, why isn't there more of it? We only have around $2 trillion assets under management out of the $120 trillion AUM in visible global assets. So here's a big, big question. And here's our view on it from the GSG impact position. That people and organizations haven't had the right or sufficient incentives, nor do they necessarily have the know-how to prioritize investment that has a sustained, positive, and measurable impact on the SDGs and on the climate goals. So we need to have a transformative shift, impact as a core in every investment, in every business decision, in every government spend. So a holistic approach to impact. And that leads, of course, to three of the most influential agents of change: investment, business, and government. And we need to make all of those transparent. Over the last 5 years, I've led the GSG Impact movement. GSG Impact is a value-based collaboration for positive impact. 20 people in the core team bringing together 2,000 people working on impact, representing over 60 countries, 2/3 of the world's population, working with impact organizations, country by country, all to achieve positive impact and to achieve capital mobilization to make impact investing flow, and for impact transparency as our future. We all know the problems. We all know the challenges, climate change, social harms, biodiversity. We can calculate the depth of the problem. We know that we have the 1.5 Celsius global heating challenge by 2050. But we also know that that target is not being achieved. And we know that because we are already just below 1.5 Celsius this year. We're seeing catastrophic events across the world, most recently in the hurricanes in Florida, and one of my good colleagues being blown out of her North Carolina hills. We are at a tipping point now, a tipping point which is going to get out of hand unless we get something more like 2035 rather than 2050 of the current deadlines. We need to act on policy. We need to bring together coalitions of action. We need to innovate. We need to work together to accelerate work on impact transparency, to bring together transformative shifts of resources to deliver positive impact. Are we getting there? Is the action actually happening? Right now, there's a lot of talk. If you listen to any of the COP series or G20, you hear a lot of talk. There's much less action. And we need to look at new angles for this. And the first is to reverse some of our perspective. And what do I mean by that, reversing our perspective? It means that we should stop thinking that we are doing good because we've done a little bit better than last year. That isn't going to get us there. If we're going to achieve the 1.5 Celsius by 2035 at the most, we have to think about that goal and work how we get there. It's not just we're doing a little bit better next year. We have to get there. I use the analogy of moonshots. You know, if you're trying to send somebody to the moon, there is absolutely no point whatsoever in getting halfway. You get halfway, you're dead. You either get there or you don't get there. And that's where we are at the moment. So here are some of the positive movements that we're seeing in the last few years. In the UK, we've had pension funds opening up for work on climate action and relevant social issues. We've seen national development plans in many countries. We've seen dozens of countries creating outcome funds. 12 countries have created wholesale impact funds, a report that went out just 2 days ago, and you can see it on the GSG online. Deal platforms in low-income countries to increase impact funds. There is increasing evidence that you are more likely to achieve superior financial returns if you optimize for ESG, sustainability, or impact. Just last week, the New York University and Rockefeller Asset Management report indicated that over the last 5 years. The FTSE, our UK financial centre, showing environmental opportunities outperforming impact investors with outperformance, both impact and returns. Sustainability impact-led, investment-led, having outside returns. And this is an opportunity for investors. It is not a problem for investors. It's the opportunity for the future. And this is how we can start these big forward steps towards 2035. It was mentioned earlier, the GIN has just reported its 2024 data, and it's giving us some really interesting data points, including the 14% CAGR, which was mentioned earlier. Compound annual growth rate over 5 years, 14% a year. Demand for clients is up. Ability to integrate impact and financial discussions is seeing more and more skilled professionals, more market activity, more ability to verify impact results. Some investors are still struggling with regulatory guidance and what is actually required in an impact investing strategy. But we are seeing more and more skills coming along. The GIN data also shows that the largest area of areas of impact investing are still in energy, financial services, health, food, agriculture, and education, as they have been for many years. But now the most lively growth, the fastest areas of growth, are life in water, the oceans, life on land, agriculture, peace and justice, and addressing hunger. And these have previously been the purview of boutique investors. Now they're coming into the forefront. One of the most positive insights from the GSG has been the work on making the best enabling environments for impact investing to happen in every kind of country, from the richest to the poorest. Impact investing is not just about investors on their own. It's also working with governments, working with regulators, working with the public, and getting positive understanding. That's really key. So we now are seeing collaborations with governments, with investors educating, providing recommendations, identifying how policymakers can influence impact growth, and particularly important, that is also happening in lower and middle income countries. And some countries are moving for impact growth really fast. And I'll give the example of Japan. Pre-COVID, just a handful of impact investors, very small amount of impact investing happening. But now, 4 years on, Japan is a global beacon of impact, from near zero to over $85 billion in impact assets under management. Now, how did they get there in that amount of space? A GSG national partner, part of the GSG team there, which developed the early stages and continue to engage more. One of the leading financiers in Japan brought together what they called an impact-driven finance initiative to engage with investors, not to tell them they had to do it, but here's something that you can have a look at and consider and think about. They brought investors, bankers, corporate leaders, all kinds. Engagement with the regulators, connections with other countries, people of influence who supported impact investing. A prime minister that then took on new capitalism, which included impact investing. All of that adding up to impact investing as the obvious move to make. Japan's AUM in impact investing in 2000, as I say, negligible. 2022, $4 billion US dollars, now 85 billion US dollars. So there's a challenge here for Taiwan. Big challenge, but of course, Taiwan is only 1/5 of the population, so you can do a bit of calibration there. But a really outstanding opportunity, I think, for impact investing in Taiwan, which I think now is just on that tipping point for full impact investing in just the same way that Japan went from very, very small to the largest in the world, actually. So, moving on. Capital is increasingly moving towards, along the spectrum towards impact. And as I mentioned earlier, impact is a key part of that impact spectrum of finance. We used to see risk and return with really no idea about the destruction of people and planet, including the destruction of investors' own investments. And now we see a different way. Impact investing, optimizing risk, return, and impact to benefit people and planet, and doing that by setting specific social and environmental objectives alongside financial ones, and measuring their achievement. That's impact investing. I want to have a look at in a different angle, and the angle of time. And I've got here the angle, the timeline for the UK. Every country starts from a different point and a different trajectory. So those dates there are UK dates. Other countries would start in a different place. I see four different stages of impact. And the first one is very much about pioneer investors. I was one of those pioneer investors back in 2010. Venture philanthropists, outcome funds, pioneer entrepreneurs, a lot of small-scale, high impact intention work, really deep impact, lots of social entrepreneurs working on that, and support organizations like Unlimited that I was working there. So that's 2010. 2016, what happened there in the UK? We started to see mainstream asset managers launching impact funds. We also started to see some pioneer pension carve-outs. Much more impact management, much more measurement, much more ESG and sustainability. It was large-scale, intentional, struggling a little to understand how the measurement and management was going to work out, but over time that's developed. Come to 2021. Reporting regulations. This is the zone of reporting regulations. Impact transparency, just transitions where you're looking both at the social and environmental factors. Sustainability-led bonds and loans, that came in really large. 2 trillion of that in just a few years. It's at country level. It was required by regulations. It broke new ground in terms of tools and new approaches. And I believe that this is where TIA and Taiwan will be next year. That's my belief. So where will we be in the future? Will the next steps of impact be in the same kind of trajectory? Yes, for some countries, but increasingly we're looking at different ways. And that's because we are running out of angels. There are not as many people who are dedicated to social and environmental goals. What do I mean by that? Well, there's a number of people who are really dedicated to impact, and there are others who are encouraged by others, customer pressure, or they want their savings to be sustainable. But at some point, we need all investment to be impactful. And not everyone and not every investor is interested in that. So we need to find other ways to achieve it. In France, new staff joining a company will be offered a savings plan. They will offer 2 versions, standard or impact. If you just offer that option, it's pretty obvious that you would go for impact, isn't it? It's very easy. There's no friction about that. Over 1.5 million people in France have taken over that 90-10, as it's called, version. In the UK, Make My Money Matter, a major media effort has been put into investing in impact. But it's still not enough. And we need to look to regulations. Definitely the International Sustainability Standards Board, which is the mandate of the IFRS global accounting system. And as you know, no one escapes accounting. So we can see that as a very, very powerful tool. And soon after that, impact valuation, monetizing the positive and the negative of actions. Now, this will be global scale. Impact investing as unavoidable. We will be moving towards a new financial system. We will have been doing this through climate and sustainability goals, and to get that safe approach, that successful moonshot, a key issue which GSG is working with the ISSB, and also we've been working. I have to stop saying we because I've just left the GSG. The GSG has been working to make sure that all countries have visibility and voice, whether they're the poorest countries or the richest countries, to make sure that everybody has a view and a way of inviting into this new financial world order. Impact transparency is happening very quickly. It's harmonizing from sustainability disclosures, building on that baseline with the EU, countries like Japan, impact valuation systems like the IFEI and Value Balancing Alliance. Critically, impact transparency is often left out of impact about governments. But now, there is a thing called the IPSASB, which is the longest version of all of these wordings that I've seen. It's the International Public Sector Accounting Body. And finally now, we can start talking about impact transparency in government as well. Impact valuation is developing. It's getting out of Harvard, which is where it started, and into actual practice. And what is impact valuation? It's putting the internalities and the externalities of what a company does, making it visible, not just profit and loss, but also the external profit and loss. And what you've got here is some examples in one field. The blue is profit and loss, the red is negative externalities, and the green, there's only one piece of green there, is a positive externality. So when you look at that, if you just look at profit and loss, Danone and Kraft are profitable. That's in the old system. If you look at General Mills, which is the one that has the green, it's profitable, and it's profitable for the world as well. And that is the difference. All 4 of these companies work in the same field. With impact valuation, their real profit and loss is very different from the old style where you don't consider the externalities. So, other ideas that are coming along. The greenhouse gas project on impact transparency is really crucial. It confronts the climate crisis by turning emission impacts into currency to understand the real costs of the emissions that are made. This year there will be more methodologies for other areas, water consumption, 4 other interim topics, all focused on the most significant environmental impacts. Over 130 different types of pollutants will be examined and tailored into the unique context of 200 different countries and regions. Impact valuation is moving from theory to initial practice. The earlier challenges about scale for data for all of this is now broken through AI. Quick couple of real-world examples, and I've picked 2 because I've just been working with Japan's G7 initiative on impact global health. So these are both global health ones. Leapfrog. Leapfrog is a really outstanding example of an impact investor. It adopts a distinct strategy that targets asset-light, scalable services in companies that specialize in particular areas, particularly in consumer health, emerging consumer health. It's jumped up from a small startup, now reaching 350 million people, 250 million of them in low incomes. It's been backed by Temasek in Singapore, providing a goal of $1 billion offered up in tranches. It's a truly outstanding impact investment. One more example, MedAccess. Vaccines and medicines are very expensive, and they're even more expensive if you have to get them travel to low-income countries. MedAccess does deals with pharmaceutical companies. It gives them a volume guarantee, which allows the pharmaceutical company to reduce the pricing. And if it can actually buy the whole of a full chain from end-to-end production, radically cheaper pricing. MedAccess has also worked with things like procurement guarantees and advanced market commitments, loan guarantees for local pharmacies in low-income countries. And it started with a 200 million fund. It's now reached 540 million people benefiting from this. These were examples. These are just examples, and we're getting more examples because we're getting more tools. And some of them are here. Some of them you'll know. Some are familiar faces moving into impact, such as insurance models and guarantees. Some are highly specific, often smaller scale, such as outcome contracts, social impact bonds. Some are very large scale, sustainability-linked bonds and loans, for example. More and more tools that we can use to achieve impact investing. If we look at just transitions, the just transition model, that came around 2015 from one of the COP series, noting that climate actions can harm populations. Not intentionally, but it happens. So the concept here has been to consider the climate action, the social economic action, and also a community voice. And this is picked up by many countries. And it's important because we've seen, particularly in Europe recently, rebellions against climate action. It's crucial that we bring social and community aspects as well as the climate change. Some of the things that you get there, for example, the Just Energy Transition programs, which are initiatives from the COPS series. So, from getting the right incentives, from understanding the real challenge around about 2035, not 2050, to get some of the positive developments where money is actually moving in the right way in impact, getting the best enabling environments for impact, to the stages where we are starting to see startups to impact, to scale, to see impact as unavoidable with impact valuation, monetization, new tools, new methods, and then here we are. Here we are now, climate change happening faster than expected. Lots of words and no actions. Technological solutions as crucial to positive change. Impact as the solution. And yes, more impact investors, please. Taking up the challenge that Japan's put forward. Recognizing that not everybody is going to do this intentionally. So impact becoming the norm, regulated, becoming unavoidable. Impact valuations, impact monetization, a new financial world order, just transitions to ensure that people are supported, still continuing the work of impact investors, the action year for next year for Taiwan, for TIA. You will be the people who make all this happen, the essential, the crucial, that moonshot success. Thank you for this. I hope it's been useful and delighted to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pryor. Once again, thank you, Mr. Pryor, for the share of the keynote speech. 第二位主讲贵宾目前正在线上。It's an honor to introduce the following keynote speaker online, CEO of Bluemark. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Ms. Christina Leon-Huvit.
Thank you so much. It is an absolute privilege to be with you, and I appreciate the opportunity to participate virtually, although I would much rather be there in person with you. I have a hard act to follow with Cliff Pryor, especially being on screen, but I will do my best. And I will just start out by saying, just as Cliff shares that we as a world, the climate, our planet is at a tipping point. Impact investing is at a crossroads. And we have a phrase in the United States that you should either go big or go home. Well, it's time to go big with impact investing. And we at Bluemark share Cliff's vision and GSG's vision that all investments and all investment decisions should optimize for impact and indeed should be accountable for their impact on society and on the environment. And that is a big part of Bluemark's raison d'etre. So with that, I'm going to try and share my screen, and I hope the technology will cooperate. But I will be using the following slides to follow along in my comments. So I'm excited to share with you some of the emerging trends that we at Bluemark are seeing in the impact investing industry, and to share some of my thoughts on future directions for this market. First, just a note on who Bluemark is. Bluemark was launched in order to fill a gap in the market, a gap that we saw as a need for a credible and independent verifier of impact. And Bluemark has indeed become the leading provider of independent verification and market intelligence for the impact investing and sustainable investing market. We've verified hundreds of investors globally, ranging from asset allocators to asset managers across private markets and public markets, across themes from climate to microfinance and financial inclusion, and investors using tools that range from venture capital to fixed income. So we have seen a lot in a few short years through this verification exercise. As Cliff alluded to in his talk, really one of the biggest concerns that we hear in our conversations with impact investors around the world is around the risk of greenwashing or impact washing. And this is not just an issue for asset managers who fear being publicly called out for greenwashing and who fear regulatory scrutiny. It's also an issue for asset allocators who are faced with the difficult task of differentiating amongst managers with credible impact strategies versus those who might be simply participating in a fad. Greenwashing is, in fact, one of the key reasons why Bluemark was created. So we believe at Bluemark that independent verification can help close the trust gap in the sustainable and impact investing market, giving allocators the confidence they need to deploy more capital more efficiently to legitimate impact strategies, and allowing the market to scale, not just for scale's sake, but to scale with integrity. Credible strategies backed by rigorous impact management and measurement are what the market really needs to deliver real-world positive impact outcomes. And the market has really made a lot of progress over the last few years in developing a set of truly excellent impact measurement and management standards and tools, which are available to investors who want to invest for impact. It is no longer a mystery how to do impact investing and to do it with discipline and rigor. When it comes to measuring impact, we have frameworks and standards like IRIS Plus and HIPSO. When it comes to managing impact, we have standards like the operating principles for impact management, like SDG Impact. And again, as Cliff alluded to, the next frontier is about how to report and value impact as part and parcel of the investment decision and reporting process. And we have standards there developing from Impact Frontiers on the impact performance reporting norms, the GINs, the Global Impact Investing Network's impact performance benchmarks, and groups like the International Foundation for Valuing Impacts that is creating methodologies for actually valuing positive and negative externalities. To help illustrate for you where the market is today in terms of alignment with best practices, I'd like to share some findings from Bluemark's annual Making the Mark report. These annual reports are based on Bluemark's cumulative findings from verifying investors' alignment with best practice and industry standards like the operating principles for impact management. This 2024 report, which was our 5th annual Making the Mark report, was based on 111 verifications on approximately 235 billion of impact assets under management, equivalent to nearly 1/4 of the overall impact investing market. This next slide just gives you a picture of the real diversity and range of investors that we have covered and verified. They range from asset managers to different types of asset owners and asset allocators, impact-only asset managers, diversified asset managers, across asset classes and across geographies. The next 2 slides are sharing with you a snapshot, and just a small snapshot, of some of the key findings from that report. And what I've done is had broken down some of these findings into two categories. The first, I'd like to highlight where we see the market really advancing and coalescing around good practices. So for example, 93% of our clients actually articulate their impact objectives in alignment, drawing on widely accepted impact goal setting standards, such as the Sustainable Development Goals. 73% of our clients have some means of reviewing and evaluating impact performance in a comparative way across the portfolio. For example, through scoring mechanisms or other kinds of mechanisms like valuing impact and monetizing impact. 83% of our clients have ESG risk management approaches that are embedded as part and parcel of their impact management approaches. So these are some of the advancing practices. Some of the practices that are more emerging, or where the market is still learning and coming along, are represented on this next slide. So it may be surprising to you to know that only 42% of investors who we have verified actually establish targets or expectations around impact performance at the time of their investments. So target setting is still a new and emerging practice. It's one that's obviously not easy, but one that we are pushing our clients to adopt. Impact-linked incentive systems to link staff incentives to the impact performance of investments is another emerging area of practice. Only about a third of our clients currently have an approach for directly linking their staff incentives to impact performance. And I think Cliff pointed out the real importance of this to the GSG, how to really create the incentive structures to scale impact investing. It's critical within institutions and across the market. And then finally, one of the most glaring areas for further improvement is related to the actions and efforts that investors are making to directly solicit input and engage the voice of end stakeholders in the impact reporting and monitoring process. A lot of investors still have not figured out how to go about working with their portfolio companies and their assets to ensure that they're looking all the way through to end beneficiaries and end stakeholders and incorporating their voice in the impact measurement process. So these are some of the areas that we are really pushing our clients to improve upon through a rigorous verification approach. Really quickly here, this is sort of the cumulative results of our verifications. We break our verification results across sort of three key categories. We have median practice, then what we call leading practice, those who get top quartile scores across the various criteria, and those who we politely say are in the learning category, those who are in the bottom quartile, but who we are pushing to improve. We recognize that impact accountability is a journey, it's not a destination, and we want to help folks continue to improve and get to best practice. Verification sits alongside, obviously, voluntary standards that are really important, a range of which are here on the right-hand side of this slide, and also regulations for impact disclosure and reporting. There have been a lot of new regulations coming to the market in Europe in particular. Regulations, I think, perhaps this is an American view, but are best designed, I think, to prevent outright abuse, to set minimum thresholds for good behavior. Voluntary standards, I think, can help drive best practice in the market. The two together are a powerful framework for verification to come in and provide an independent opinion of the alignment to those standards and regulations. I'll say a few words about where we see the market going in terms of impact accountability. One of the key market gaps that has become more apparent in recent years is the disconnect between investment managers and investment allocators when it comes to communicating and sharing information about the full set of impact credentials of a fund. Impact allocators are often using bespoke and proprietary approaches to due diligence and screening, and fund managers are also adopting various customized reporting practices. Fund ID is designed to help managers and allocators communicate more efficiently. It's a framework for holistically assessing a fund's impact credentials across these 4 pillars of strategy, governance, management, and reporting. I'm speeding up now because I realize I'm running out of time, but I will just point you here to some of the resources on Bluemark's website and leave you with a few final thoughts before we move into the discussion. I'd like to talk about, the sort of do's and don'ts when it comes to impact integrity. And I think we can discuss this a little bit more in the panel format. But on the green flag side, the do's, we need allocators to have a shared language and more clearly communicate their expectations to investment managers as it relates to impact reporting, as it relates to impact accountability. We need managers to demonstrate to allocators how impact is integrated throughout the investment life cycle, and to show impact results that are contextualized in those impact practices. We need portfolio companies to focus more on capturing the voice of end stakeholders and beneficiaries and measuring those impacts that are most relevant to their business. On the don'ts, we need allocators to be watching out for managers that do not have a well-defined impact thesis or one that's not well backed up by evidence. We need managers to avoid over-promising and to be upfront about what they do and don't know and about the impact risks associated with their strategies. And likewise, we need portfolio companies to be careful about being absolutely upfront about where financial objectives are compatible with impact objectives and where they are not. Those are just a few thoughts. I'm going to stop here in order to give us time for the discussion, and I will share some more takeaways during that Q&A. But thank you so much.
Thank you, Christina. Please remain online for the panel discussion. Once again, please join me in welcoming the moderator, Ms. Sophia Chen. And we also would like to invite the panelists, Mr. Pryor, please come up to the stage for our panel discussion. Thank you. 让我们以掌声欢迎我们今天的座谈主持人陈淑芬投资长，以及我们今天的语坛贵宾 Mr. Pryor， 还有我们线上的 Miss Leon Hoover。
前面2位讲者讲得非常的精彩，所以我就想说，不要打断他们的时间。Christina, would you like to put your own camera on so on the screen we can see you?
I'm sorry, I do have my camera on. Let me just try again.
Yeah, if no, I will suggest, yeah, perfect. We can see you now. Thank you.
Okay,
Perfect.
good.
Okay, so I will start to 我讲中文还讲英文？那我讲英文好了，好不好？Okay, thank you very much. I will moderate the session in English. Please apologize for my imperfect English. From the 2 presentations, we can understand about GHG and Blue Mark. And so, given the limit of time, I do like to spend some time to elaborate from the 2 very outstanding speech. First one on Cliff on GSG, and you have the focus area of mobilizing private capital for public good, which is every day we say for impact investment, and also how we build an impact economy in every country, which you obviously went to 60 countries. That's very amazing. And then the impact transparency and integrity, which also linked to Blue Mark. And when we think about verification and reporting. So I'd like to ask Chris and Christina. First one is, where do we see as the critical action? Because we do mention about talk a lot, do not up to the standard. Are there metrics we can look at where are the critical area that we need action right away? Are there any low-hanging fruits to tell investors it's not that difficult? What are the things that we can do today? And the second point is, very often when we talk to corporates or investors, they will tell us, oh, again, another framework, another ESG rating, another principles. And we already devote so much resource into it. But as the world is worrying about greenwashing and how to make investors be more respected, I also like to learn from Chris and Christina. From investors' point of view, how can we help investors to understand this effort is a very good investment instead of just additional expense, costly? So how we make from, are there any good example from your stakeholders? Are there good example to tell us this is investor, very good investment, not just additional burden? And are there some cases for benefits investor actually gained after do more solid, and do good verification? Thank you.
Okay, which one of those many questions at once? This is tricky. Look, I think that the critical action point, and where is this needed most? Quite a lot of the global organizations, the COP series, G20 and so on, have put a lot of effort into what are called the JETPs, the Just Energy Transition projects. And this is trying to take away, for example, in Indonesia, coal, and replace it with clean energy. My view on this is rather different, in that, for example, Africa is responsible for about 3% of total carbon problems. Why are we bothering with the 3% when we're not worrying about the 97% that the major developed countries are? So I think we need to reorganize. And this is part of this sort of moonshot idea. If you've got a definite deadline, you work backwards from that to how you're going to achieve it, and you're not going to achieve it by reducing the odd 1 or 2%. From low-income countries. You're going to get it from the US, from Europe, from China, from the heavy emitters. So I think that sort of critical action issue needs to be reframed. And the reason why it's not being reframed in the COP series and so on really is that countries do not want to, they want to say that they're at the forefront, but they're not actually doing it. What I'm hearing here in Taiwan is different. You want to do it, and you're going to do it. And we heard a lot of ministers actually committing to action. That change from, it's looking in a different angle. It's looking in a global angle, which the COP series really ought to be doing, is thinking, how do we solve this problem as quickly as possible before it gets into a tipping point where it becomes absolutely catastrophic? That's how we should be focused. So I'm thinking at the macro level, and I'm sure that Christina has a lot more specificity about this.
Well, I come away from a large global conference last week on responsible investing, where I spoke to many pension funds and asset owners about why they're not putting more of their capital into sustainable and impact investments. And I continue to hear that in much of the industrialized world, the regulatory environment around fiduciary duty and responsibility is still very narrowly defined. I think one of the most low-hanging fruits that I see is for governments and policymakers to redefine what fiduciary duty is for institutional investors, to take a broader lens, a longer term lens on what it means to create value for one's stakeholders and for the economy. And I think there are a lot of good people working in large institutions and financial intermediaries that actually are motivated and would like to allocate more capital to sustainable and impact products, but they feel their hands are tied. So I think redefining fiduciary regimes is one of the lowest hanging fruits, I believe, to unlocking more capital. Bluemark hears every day from its clients, which are largely investment managers, that if their investors tell them to do something, I mean, they are driven entirely by the demands of asset allocators. And so we have to work with the gatekeepers. We know that individuals are clamoring for more sustainable and impact investment products. There's a lot of statistics from the large wealth management firms that the next generation of clients, the majority of them want to see more sustainable and impact investment products in their portfolios, but it's the gatekeepers that are the hurdle.
If I may, just briefly on that, there are some breakthroughs coming through. So, for example, in the UK, there has been a quite radical change to where pension funds are starting to realize that their responsibility is for the pensioners to have a decent life in old age. Now, a decent life is not just money. A decent life is, can you live in the place that you live? If you haven't, if you've increased the heat so much that it's not livable anymore, you now have to look at that. And an organization called Pensions for Purpose has been wonderful achievements in those breakthroughs, and it's starting to become an international field. And as you say, Christina, I think that the new wealth is taking a very different view than people of my age, sadly, of old wealth.
This is very cool. When we go to university campus recruiting, in our booth, we have this job description. The other side, we have our business mission, and we found students, the college students, spend a lot of time on the ESG mission rather than on the job description. So the middle income people and the next generation, they do care a lot how you earn the money, not just how much money you earn. And I think as Christina mentioned, if up to current stage, we need policymaker to define what the duty of financial institution is, then we probably need to do more on that framework. Take Cathay as an example. Every day we ask ourselves, if I manage 65% of population wealth, if I manage 13 million of insurance policies, and if I manage a lot of depositors' money on their behalf, how am I allocating their money to support who? Is that a positive supporter or damaged person to social and environment? So we can work more on pushing the gatekeeper, become a goal pusher. Maybe that works. And the other one is giving this idea, how do we accelerate? So Christina mentioned about must do and must not do. Can we, is it possible to have some example? And I'm so keen on how we can learn from different countries. And I understand when I see the ESG, responsible investment, impact investment, we can clearly see in Asia, at least Japan is so aggressive. They certainly want to lead on everything, including even net zero transition. So Christina and Cliff, can you share more with us how we accelerate? And what's the must do, must not do? If Cliff have some more additional comment, and any good example on country and ecosystem level that you can share with us.
I'll try first then. Look, I think the Japan example is really outstanding. 0 to 85 billion is in 4 years is absolutely outstanding. But we have to recognize that Japan is a very hierarchical country. So if the Prime Minister says this should happen, it just works through the system. That would not be the case in the US or in Europe. So we have to think about, what are the solutions that work with particular countries. I take the example of Spain, which again developed very rapidly, and it developed rapidly because one of the 3 main banks there, CaixaBank, just decided, yes, we're going to do this, and started putting impact investing material in the regular stuff that you would get through your door, your monthly for your finances, and it would talk about impact and what you wanted to do about impact and so on. And that really just picked up very, very quickly. France with the 90-10 pensions, making it frictionless almost for people to opt into a more impact-oriented approach. Their language is slightly different, but it's country by country. If I look at Ghana, Ghana has taken a 10%. No, I'm not sure it's a 10%. It's taken a carve out from the National Pension Fund in order to create a wholesale impact fund to make it easier for development finance to come into Ghana and for use for impact. So these are examples. They're individual examples. I don't think you can have a cookie cutter. You have to think about this particular situation, this particular country.
Global wisdom, global practice, local wisdom then. Christina, how about your thoughts?
Well, I have to share Cliff's perspective on Japan. I think one of the things that I found so impressive in traveling to Japan recently is the real learning mindset that has been adopted by not only the government policymakers, but various practitioners in investors, and in addition to the learning mindset, I think there is a real ecosystem mindset of bringing sort of nonprofits and field builders together with the private sector and the public sector. So the Impact Consortium that was launched by the FSA in Japan, I think was a really remarkable example of that. So I think must-dos on the part of governments and countries is, well, adopt a learning mindset, learn from what's working in other parts of the world. Don't reinvent the wheel. I think Japan's doing a very good job of that. I think in terms of a must-don't, again, maybe this is a US perspective, but I would say don't overregulate, notwithstanding the fact that the United States has a lot of problems right now, particularly around around issues around sustainable and impact investing is sitting at the crosshairs. I do think one thing the US has gotten right is allowing for a long period of innovation and creativity in the market, and taking a more principles-based approach to regulating the market, one that seeks to ensure that obviously there's protection against fraud and mislabeling, but that doesn't go so far as to overburden the market and quash the innovation that is absolutely needed for this market to scale.
Could I possibly just come back to Taiwan on this? Because I'm going to scare Ray now. Because we were having a meal and we were discussing, what would actually change things here rapidly. And I ended up with a napkin with some ideas on it. And I'm not sure whether Ray will now run out to the door or whatever. But sustainability and impact is the future. Join it now. Impact accounting with the ISSB. Get started on that. Think about whether the National Development Fund could start on impact, particularly climate and people, that angle. And make sure that the legal entities for social enterprise and for profit with purpose, get moving. So I don't know whether these are right. Oh yeah, I'm getting a thumbs up. That's good. But it was a good napkin, and I think we should keep it.
Thank you so much. Given the limited time, sorry we kind of ran a little bit longer than expected. But I think if we do look at the comparison, by learning the best practice, and if everyone remember what you two have just shared as the beginning of our learning journey, and start to add one action at least per week, I think we can make quite difference. And then Taiwan has better chance in multi-stakeholders. When we take it serious and collaborate, we can make Taiwan respected. And I remember when I first talked to Cliff, he said, the world is running out of angels. We need to help these good projects together. And if we can convince the world, impact investment is making positive return, above or in line with market return, with positive social and environment impact, by making money together, the money we make, we can become the next angel. Then we will have a lot of angel in the future.
Fantastic.
So thank you, Cliff, and thank you, Christina, for the wonderful sharing. And I hope this is only the beginning of your more frequent visit to Taiwan. Christina, I hope you can come to Taiwan very soon.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you. So I will end the session here. Thank you very much.
Please give a round of applause to the moderator and our panelists. I would like to invite Sophia and Cliff step forward for group photos. And Christina, please watch the webcam for group photos. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, now we will have a 10 minutes break. Please enjoy the refreshments outside. The following session will be continued at 11:30. 各位贵宾，接下来是茶叙交流时间，我们在场外备有茶点，欢迎各位享用。那稍后的议程，我们在11点半正式开始，届时也请您提早就座，谢谢。Thank you, Mr. Pryor and Christina online. Thank you, Sophia. Thank you.